Hello and welcome. Welcome to Chapter 4, Managing Money. Let's talk about Unit 4D, loan payments, credit cards, and mortgages. Let's start with some loan basics. The principal is the amount of money owed in any particular time. This is how much you borrowed initially or how much remains of what you borrowed in the future. An installment loan or amortized loan is a loan that is paid off with equal regular payments. Equal regular payments. This is like your car payment never changes month to month. Your house payment doesn't change month to month. Those types of loans. The loan term is the time that you have to pay back the loan in full. So at the end of the loan term, you no longer owe money. You've paid everything back to the lender. Unsurprisingly, there's a loan payment formula for installment loans. And the payment formula says that your payment will be the principal multiplied by the APR times N. And it turns out that this numerator is always the interest payment. And we'll see that here in a few slides. I just want to bring your attention to it now. So when I come back and say, hey, remember, it'll be because I pointed it out before. The principal, right? The payment, we start with the payment, the regular payment amount. The principal or the starting amount, the amount that you borrowed. Annual percentage rate divided by the number of payment periods per year. All divided by, and don't let the brackets versus parentheses. It's just, there's so many parentheses, mathematicians like to go to a different style. On your computer, you're still going to use the round parentheses. Don't worry, or computer. I assume that everybody's calculator's on their computer now. Maybe it's on your phone. You're still just going to use the round parentheses. 1 minus parentheses 1 plus APR over N, close parentheses, to the power of negative N times the number of years. Remember, you can enter this entire formula on the calculator, on any scientific calculator at once, and it'll just pop out the answer. You don't have to worry about the intermediate steps. Okay, so the portions of installment loan payments going towards principal and towards interest vary as the loan is paid down. We're going to see a better graph later. But if this is your amount of payment, right, that's how much you pay for your loan term, ending here, right, you're going to pay the same amount all the time. What's actually happening is it's about like this, where all of this is interest. And only this little bit down here is your principal. So at the beginning, you're paying very little principal, but the lender is getting their money. Okay, now early in the loan term, the portion going towards interest is relatively high, and the portion going towards principal is relatively low. I drew that picture right in the wrong spot. Look at that. I could have moved it down just a little bit. As the term proceeds, right, as we're getting towards the loan term ending, the portion going towards interest is smaller, and the portion towards principal is much larger. Okay, so suppose you have student loans totaling $30,000 when you graduate from college. Congratulations, that in itself. Not only graduating college, but only having $30,000 you owe. Beautiful. Something we can all aspire to. Now, let's suppose the interest rate has an APR of 9% and the loan term is 10 years. What are your monthly payments? How much will you pay over the lifetime of the loan, and what is the total interest you will pay on the loan? Let's start with the loan payment formula. Your principal, the amount that you owe once you start paying, is $30,000. 9% monthly. All right, we substitute our ones, our parentheses, our minuses, our pluses, everything good. APR 0.09, 12. Don't forget your negative. Like, loans are kind of depressing, so they have a negative, kind of a downside exponent there. Negative 12 times the 10 years. Now, you could do this step by step. Here, they've only taken care of doing the little divisions, right? And a 1 plus, right? After we do 0.09 divided by 12, it's pretty easy to add 1 to it. And also, we took care of our exponent. You could put this all into the calculator at once, never ever see these two steps, and get an answer of 380.03. I encourage you to use your calculator, the one you're going to use for the homework. Try this out. Make sure you get 380.03. Hit pause now. I guess it doesn't make sense what I say after I hit pause now because you already hit pause. All right, so you got that value of $380.03 over the 10-year term. Your total payments will be, for 10 years, you make payments 12 months per year, so your years cancel out. Your payments are of $380.03 per month, so our months cancel out. Remember that unit analysis that we talked about in Chapter 2? So we'll have 10 times 12 times 380.03. The only units left are dollars. And we end up with $45,603.60. Always round to 2 decimal places for money unless it tells you different, especially if we're using the US dollar. Common sense isn't so common, but common sense tells us use cents. CENTS, right? 2 decimal places. So of the $45,604 we pay off over the life of this loan, over those 10 years, only $30,000 is the principal. That means $15,604 remains. That's the amount of interest. So this is like your convenience fee for borrowing that $30,000 when you didn't have it. Now you paid them like half as much to borrow that money, and then they get made a profit out of it. Man, I hate student loans. Coming from someone who actually managed to pay theirs off, I still hate them. I'm all for student loan forgiveness. I don't care. Okay, so let's look at the first 3 months. For the student loan in the previous example, the table shows the amount of payment that is applied to the principal. It's easier to use software that finds principal and interest payments with built-in functions, and look for a mortgage calculator or maybe an amortization calculator. These search terms, will, if you ever want to look at it month by month, if you want to go through all 120 months of the student loan payment and see how much is to interest and how much is to principal, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to do that for you. So on that $30,000 loan, 10-year term with an APR of 0.09, remember our payment formula. We had a whole bunch of stuff down here, don't care about down here. We had P times APR over N. And I said, hey, pay attention to this part. Well, this is our interest. Our principal, whatever it happens to be, in this case it was 30,000. We're going to multiply that by our APR over 12. And if you remember on a slide or two ago, 0.09 over 12 is 0.0075. And so that's how we get this. Your interest is always the principal. It's the top line of your payment formula. If you're already in the midst of it, it's whatever the balance is remaining. How do you find the balance remaining? Here's how we do that. So after the first month, we pay 0.09% interest, right, monthly. So we divide it by 12 times the 30,000 we borrowed. $225 in interest is being paid. But we paid the bank $380. $225 of it is going towards interest. Only $155 actually goes towards the principal. So even though you paid almost $400, you'll notice that the next month, your principal did not drop by $400. Right? The interest comes first, and then a little bit goes to principal. So we're a little bit lower, about $155. Now the interest on the $29,844.97 that remains is a little bit less than the interest on the full $30,000, which means a little bit more of that payment can go to the principal, which means, okay, so now we subtract 156 instead of 155. Still not awesome, $1 at a time, but you can see how this gradually, the interest that you pay goes down because gradually the principal goes down. Gradually the amount that you pay towards the principal goes up because that payment is staying the same and the amount of interest is going down. All right, let's talk about credit cards. Credit cards, just say no. Credit cards differ from installment loans in that you are not required to pay off your balance in any set period of time. You're taking this class online. If you're struggling to keep up with deadlines, do not use credit cards. When there's no set period of time, there's no set, hey, go to class at this time, go to class at that time, it gets difficult for some humans. If you know that's you, keep it in mind. With credit cards, a minimum monthly payment is required. Generally, that monthly payment covers all of the interest that you have accrued for that month, but very little of the principal. takes a long time to pay off a credit card loan if only the minimum payments are made, right? You have this much principal and they charge you interest. And so they're only requiring you to pay this much in the first month, all of this interest. Oh, and here's a little bit towards your balance. But that means the next month the interest is still high because you have that balance left, right? So much of that huge balance left. You haven't hardly dipped in at all. So only minimum payments, rough. It's hard to pay off a credit card. So let's look at an example. Suppose you have a credit card balance of $2,300 with an annual interest rate of 21%. You decide to pay off your balance over 1 year. How much will you need to pay each month? Assume you will make no further credit card purchases. This is key. If you want to pay off your credit card, stop using it. It may sound like I'm saying this to you, but really, I'm saying it out loud to remind myself as well. All right? I'm human. Credit cards are trouble when you let them get out of control. Mine's not out of control. I just got to make sure it doesn't get there. Not that you need to know that. Okay, so what should I pay, right? The payment is the principal, the amount we owe, $2,300. My APR is 21%. We'll use that in decimal form as 0.21, and we'll pay this monthly. The parentheses, the 1 minus, the 1 plus, right? And again, my APR over 12 to the power of negative 12 times 1, because we're going to pay it off in 1 year. And when you put this whole thing in your calculator all at once, you get $214.16. You must pay $214.16 per month to pay off the balance in 1 year. Now I want to show you something. Let's just assume that's $215. I round up because any kind of change, that's more. And we pay this for a full month. Now, when I multiply $215 every month for 12 months, multiply by 2, and I'll get $430. Remember, 12 is just 10 and 2. So I multiplied by 2, so I doubled. And now I'm just going to multiply by 10. So I'm just going to throw a 0 on the end. All right, that's why that 0 is always on the end when we move over. When I add down, 0,852. Now, if I take my $2,580 that I end up paying and I subtract my principal, that's not so bad, right? $8,280. If we could get this debt paid off in 1 year, we pay an extra payment and plus a little more in interest. If we take it for 10 years, like we did that student loan example, now my interest is half of the amount that I borrowed. So the longer you put it off, the longer the terms of the years are, the more you're going to pay in interest. And that's the key anytime you have debt. All right, so let's talk about a home mortgage. This is a particular type of installment loan designed specifically to finance a home. Mortgage is actually dead pledge. That's where the word comes from, mort, dead, gage, pledge. I'm going to go with Latin. Most likely, that's a guess, but it's a safe guess. Dead pledge, and usually when somebody would buy a home, they were 15 to 20 years old back in the day, and it would take 30 years, and so they're promising to pay until they're dead. They're promising to pay for 30 years for a house. It's kind of mind-numbing and hurtful if you think about it. All right, so the down payment is the amount of money you must pay up front in order to be given a mortgage or other loan. So sometimes banks say, yeah, you don't have any money, why should we give you some? This is your way of saying, hey, look, really, I can come up with money. Usually it's about it's about a teacher's salary. About $40,000 to $50,000 is a down payment. If teacher salaries ever go up, the down payments might go up, but it turns out that's not really, it's weird. You will never find that in writing. That's just something I've noticed. And maybe it's wrong, but I've noticed. Now, along with a mortgage, you'll have your down payments. You have to have money ahead of time. And then you have closing costs. And then that's extra fees, right? So you have to have some money so you can say, hey, look, I got some money. Will you give me more? And they say, yeah, sure, we'll give you more, but you have to pay us before we'll give it to you. Those are the closing costs. And there could be direct fees like getting the house appraised, a credit check to make sure you're worthy of their loan, or fees charged as points. each point is 1% of the loan amount. It might also be called an origination fee. It might be called a discount points. But when it comes to mortgages, points are percentage points. So a fixed rate mortgage is one in the interest rate is guaranteed not to change over the life of the loan. This is absolutely what you want if you are just going to live in the home. You looking for a home for your family. You want a fixed rate mortgage. An adjustable rate mortgage is one where the interest rate changes based on the prevailing rates. This means that the interest rate could go down, right? You could interest rate goes down, I'm paying less interest. Awesome. But almost always interest goes up. So usually when it adjusts, and it'll adjust, it'll have a period where it adjusts. Maybe it'll be fixed for 3 years, and then it adjusts and be set for 3 years, and then it'll adjust again. Adjustable rate mortgages have so many different views of them. It's really hard to find one that works for your situation. So let's look at some examples. Okay, so Great Bank offers a $100,000 30-year 5% fixed rate loan with closing costs of $500 plus 1 point. Big Bank offers a lower rate of 4.75 on a 30-year loan, but with Great Bank closing costs of $1,000 plus 2 points. I believe that should say Big. Evaluate the two options. So Great Bank, we're going to pay about $537 per month. Great Bank, we also have to pay $500 to start, plus 1% of $100,000. 1% of 100 is 1. So that's $1,000. So we have to pay 500 and 1,000. We have to pay $1,500 up front. Okay, about $537 a month, and we'll pay $1,500 a month. $500 plus 1 point. Okay. Now, Big Bank offers this lower rate, right? This lower rate, and let's call that about $522 per month. But closing costs are $1,000 and 2 points. Remember, a 1 point is 1,000, so 2 points will be 2,000. So we'll have a lower monthly payment, lower by about $15, but we have more upfront costs. Okay, so let's think about this. So we'll save about $15 per month with Big Bank's lower interest rate. So over the life of the loan, awesome. But we have to consider the difference in closing costs. We know Big Bank charges $500. That's not true. Great Bank charges $500. Big Bank charges $1,000. Great Bank charges 1 point, and Big Bank charges 2 points. So the difference is at the beginning, right? It's only about $15 per month overall, but there's a difference of $1,500 upfront costs. How long will it take, right? That $1,500, if we divide it by that $15 difference in payment each month, excuse me, it'll take 100 months or 8.5 years to overcome this payment here. Okay, so if you're going to be staying in the house for much more than 8.5 years, I would absolutely take. Okay, here's how I'm saying it. Staying a long time. Go with Great Bank. Oh my goodness, that's so not right. This sentence doesn't make any dang sense to me. I would go, here's my deal. If I'm going to flip it, I'm going with this. If I'm going to flip it, I'm going with Great Bank. I pay less up front, My payments are a little higher. That's okay because I plan on selling the house. Maybe I'm just buying a house to get through college, maybe grad school, maybe I took this job that's going to last for 3 years. I would go with this smaller upfront costs. If you were going to live there, this is your house, your grandchildren are going to inherit this house because your kids won't need it. They'll have their own while you're still using it. Then you'll want to go with the smaller payment. Sure, it's a little bit more upfront, but that's for the other 29 years of lower payments, right? Wow, I had to really piece that one out. Now here's what's going on, and I drew a chart similar to this. Portions of a monthly payment go into principal and interest over the life of a 30-year, $100,000 loan at 5%. So we saw that the Great Bank 5%, $537 was the amount of the payment, and it takes 5 years. 5 years, and only about $153 will be going to principal still. So at $100,000, you've decreased it by a little less than $150 every month for 5 years. You're not making, you're spitting in a well. Nobody's going to know where that saliva is. Yes, that's gross, and don't do that. We're in post-COVID days, but I still have a Gen X brain. So very little goes in, all right? All the interest gets taken care of first. Now let's talk about why adjustable rate mortgages are a bad idea for most people. You have a choice between a 30-year fixed rate loan at 4% and an adjustable rate mortgage, ARM, with a first-year rate of 3%. Neglecting compounding and changes in principal, because we know at the beginning almost all of its interest. Let's estimate our monthly savings with an adjustable rate mortgage during the first year on a $100,000 loan. Suppose that the ARM rate rises to 5% by the third year. How does this affect us? Okay, now we've talked about it. I don't know why that spot's on there, but we're going to... Oh, that's why that spot's on there. I remember. Since mortgage payments are mostly interest in the early years of a loan, let's just assume the principal remains unchanged. 4% of $100,000 is $4,000. So that'll be approximately the interest that you pay on your first year of the fixed rate loan. Similarly, since the principal doesn't change much in the first year, 3% of that $100,000, you'll have approximately $3,000 of interest in the first year on the adjustable rate mortgage. Obviously, you're paying more interest on the fixed rate loan right now. If you save $1,000 over the course of a year, what you're doing is you're saving $83 a month. But by the third year, remember our fixed rate is at 4%. Fixed, it's not going anywhere. So we're thinking about $4,000 a month in interest in the early parts of the loan. The fixed rate one, however, let's go with blue. The fixed rate, we're at 3% for a while, and that's cool because that's about $3,000, and we're less by $83 per month. But after 5 years, when that adjustable rates jump to 5%, and we're now paying about $5,000 in interest a year, that's $1,000 more. Now we're paying $83 more each month that maybe we weren't expecting. Think about this. It's a 30-year loan. After 5 years, you're now paying $83 a month more. That's 25 years at $83. Call it $100. Whoops. We're 25 years, 12 months for each year. Oh my goodness, let me do this right. Double it. How about I add correctly? Double it, right? 2 times 25, and then 10 times 25. 300 months of about 83. 300 months times 83. Because you went with that adjustable rate mortgage and you thought you were going to be doing good up here, I'm going to take 83 times 3 and get 9 and a 24, and then I'm going to throw 2 zeros on the end. You've ended up paying the bank $25,000 more than you needed to. Right? So that adjustable rate mortgage, you took a chance, and after 5 years, it's got you down. All right, be careful when borrowing money. You never know what the future holds, whether it's the interest rate that's changing or your income that's changing. Borrowing is something you should only do if you have to. Thanks for listening.